Lynn's my hero, and I have very few heroes in my life. I mean, my sister, my mom, my family's are truly my heroes. And it's because they never say die. One of the things that my dad had always said whenever we would talk about not being able to do something, I can't do this, I can't do that. Dad's comment was always, well, Kent died in the cornfield. Now, that's very special to us. A lot of people just go, excuse me, but we knew what he meant. And that there was never an idea of, it's not a matter of, I can't do it. The question is, what do I need to do in order to make it happen?
I don't know what it is. It's if you've been around people that have had polio over the years. Of course, polio is a virus, and you ran a very high temperature, and I don't know what I'm getting at. Probably 9 out of. It seems like an awful high percentage of polio patients are type A's. I don't know if it fried our brains or what, but high temperature. And I think a lot of it had to do with the way the polios were rehabbed. The patients. It was a very aggressive type of physical therapy because this was a disease that you could get tremendous results if you worked hard. You've heard the no pain, no gain. Well, of course, a lot of that came out of of course, that's all changed now. If it hurts, you don't do it. But back then, it was a mindset that you had to try, And because of that, you ended up with a lot of kids that had a tendency to be overachievers, if you will. And it's a blessing, but sometimes it's also a problem. You try to maybe do things you shouldn't do, which bring about negative results as you grow older. You end up with a lot of what I call premature aging because of this mindset. You can do it, and as a kid, you're always told that by the doctor, by the therapist, by your parents were told to encourage you to do things. And no wasn't an option. You had to figure out if you couldn't do it the conventional way, you had to try to come up with another way to do it. And because of that, you never considered quitting or stopping was not even in the option.
There was always a tremendous caring for excellence. How do you do it the best you can do it? And I think that Linn, that's the one thing that is carried through in all of his life. If anything, he doesn't take the ordinary, something that it's everyone's doing. Linn will always look for something that is truly out of the ordinary, and try to figure out how to make that work. And that's because he's not afraid to fail, and hence he didn't fail a lot, because he would if it didn't work out exactly right, you learn from it and you move on. And that's really that's a very valuable lesson he taught me, was that for crying out loud, never be afraid to fail, and even more importantly, don't be afraid to try.
My whole mode of operation changed when the vet came. Long-range planning used to be 2 to 5 years. Now it's next Friday. You know what I mean? How you live independently when you're not supposed to live independently? I tried, we talked before, it's kind of overcoming obstacles. You got your backup batteries. When you're living on a machine that requires electricity, these ventilators are AC and DC, and at night I'm plugged into the wall, so I'm working off of the AC, and when I'm running around like I am now, I'm using 12-volt batteries. If the battery on the vent goes bad, I've got it wired up so I can run the ventilator off the wheelchair batteries. If this kind of part of the world, we don't have a tremendous amount of snow. We have some snow, but not a lot of snow. We get a lot of ice. And ice can play havoc with the electricity. It can be out for a long time. So outside the back door, we bought a generator. So it's plan C. I mean, with a couple gallons of gasoline, somebody can start the motor, we can stay breathing until the power comes on again. So I've tried to overcome, figure out how I can do this, because I'm kind of an independent cuss. And to be strapped in four walls, I'd go nuts. So, so this is kind of a compromise. You know, it's, maybe it goes back to the people telling me that I can't do things. You know, and it's not my family, but people not seeing me for my abilities, but seeing my disabilities. Life's been a challenge. And I don't regret any of it. I wouldn't have met a lot of people if I hadn't been in this predicament. You make sacrifices to achieve the goal that you want to achieve. Ain't easy, but it works.
I truly didn't know my brother was handicapped. Linn was he was different. I mean, again, Linn's the one that taught me to throw a baseball, you know, to hit a baseball, to do different things. I never saw him as handicapped. Once you met Linn, the braces and the crutches disappeared. I mean, it didn't take very long. I think if anything, from a handicap standpoint, he used it to his advantages. Linn could get in to see people like the University of Maryland president, okay, quicker than I could. He knew it, and he would use it. Not ashamed, just I need to talk to you, okay? And he's used that throughout his life. I think Linn's most significant contribution is not his football, not his automobile racing, but what he's done at Western Maryland Hospital. Linn had made the comment to me. He said, I used to think all this high profile thing was really pretty special. And he says, it took me getting sick, meaning the problems that he had with his respiratory failure, to be put in a position where I could really do some significant work. I watched him this summer spend an hour and a half with a young man who had been in an automobile accident with a head trauma, who Linn set up an email address for this young man. And this young man had two siblings here in Washington. We spent an hour and a half typing a one-sentence message to his brother and his sister that he had an email address. Now, he did it. Now, I spent an hour and a half with him. I don't know how much time Linn had spent prior to that. But whenever the young man pushed send, that probably was the most significant accomplishment that I had during my 1999. And, well, maybe my daughter was just married, so maybe there's another one. But the thing that was amazing to me was Linn does this every day. This was just another event for Linn. And I mean, and he thinks nothing of it. There are miracles happening around him all the time. And it's just unbelievable. And he'll look at you and he'll go, what? I mean, it's just commonplace.